Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to spend part of your what's today? Saturday evening with me, September 9th. I am so happy to see you. We did a great live show yesterday with Meredith Beardmore, who is a therapist who wrote a book about addiction, and it's kind of a self-help book for family members and collateral damage of alcoholics and addicts. And it was a really intimate live and a great conversation. She answered questions. If any of you saw that yesterday, let me know how you felt about that in the chat, because it was a really great show. Unfortunately, there's this prisoner guy who has escaped and he hasn't been found yet. So there were, I think, 20,000 people watching that yesterday. There were also at least 3,500 people on Law and Crime waiting for the Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt hearing to start, which I was going to do live yesterday, but I had this live scheduled with Meredith, and I'm glad that I didn't, because it didn't happen. At least it wasn't live streamed. So everyone that was waiting on Law and Crime, waiting for this hearing to happen, didn't get to see it, because I think at the last minute, the judge decided that it was not going to be live streamed. So there were some issues with that. For those of you who know about this case, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt, and you're very well versed in it, how about you put a 1 in the chat? For those who don't know anything about it, let's put a 2 in the chat. And while we're doing that, I would like to give a big shout out to my Colorado Buffs today, who beat Nebraska in the home opener in Boulder. It was such an amazing game. I'm so proud of my Buffs. And it's going to be a really great year. Deion Sanders has been hired as the head coach. His son is the quarterback. He has another son on the team. And if you don't know who Deion Sanders is, just check out his Instagram, because he is so inspirational. It's crazy. It's just like gives me the chills how inspirational this guy is and how he treats his team. And it's just really heartwarming. I think there's a lot of football coaches out there that are kind of mean, but he's just so kind to his players. And I think that makes a big difference when you're trying to coach a team. I don't know. Maybe that's too girly of me to say, but I like him. And also, last night, that's right, I was going to do something last night after Meredith's show. And then my girlfriend called and she said, do you want to go see Sting at Jones Beach outdoors? It's a concert venue here on Long Island. So we went to see Sting at the very last minute. And let me tell you something, that guy is 71 years old. And I don't know what he's drinking from the Fountain of Youth, but I want in on that. He looks amazing and he sounds amazing. And his son is also a singer, and his son opened the show for him. And go Trojans. And his son sounds just like Sting and looks like Sting. And it was so cool to see like 2 generations of his family on stage. And it was really a really great show. It was on my bucket list. I had never seen Sting before live. I saw the Police once, all the way back in the day, like very, very early when the Police just first started. So that was really cool. If you have a chance to go see Sting, I highly recommend that you do. So I have not really been covering any of this prisoner stuff. That's not really my wheelhouse. And I don't just tend to just jump on with whatever's trending at the moment. But I did go on with Judy Ron, I think once, maybe twice, just to get the mom's perspective on it. If you don't know who I am, I'm a mother of 5. I also, I'm a 30-year experienced New York trial lawyer and litigator. A large part of my practice, I'm not taking on any new clients right now. Now I'm a legal analyst and commentator and YouTuber, apparently. But a large part of my practice was dedicated to advocating for victims, survivors of CA, especially against the clergy, because there was a huge scandal that broke here in 2002 against the Diocese of Rockville Center, and the Suffolk County grand jury issued a scathing report that was hundreds and hundreds of pages long about, how the scandal was covered up and for many, many years. And it was a really devastating case for me and also for all of my clients, because in New York, the statute of limitations at the time had expired. And New York at the time was the most pedo-friendly state in the country, if you can believe that. The statute of limitations was such at the time that if you kept a child quiet long enough, you could never go to jail. And you would never be prosecuted, and you could never be sued in court civilly. So it took 15 years or so, but eventually we fought long and hard enough for New York to change the law, and they finally did enact the Child Victims Act, which gave a window for certain people to be able to bring lawsuits, and it extends the statute of limitations going forward on criminal cases. So in the end, it was a small victory, but how many children were injured in that whole process of what I called fraud? But I digress. We can do that another time. It's for another show. Hello, Janine from Calamo, Washington. Hello to all my moderators in the chat. I love you guys. You're amazing. Just a little reminder to please keep it classy in the chat. We love to let you guys chat and go on and talk about whatever you want, but please be respectful. Please do not be mean to each other or attack me or any of my guests or each other personally. Or these are the best moderators on YouTube. They will block you. They will put you in timeout. And really, you don't want that. You just do not want that. Look at Killing Me Softly jumping in here with the $9.99 super sticker. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you. So I also have a little reminder over here, and you can't really read the sign, but it's pink. And it says, you cannot make everybody happy. You are not a cupcake. And so I am here to remind you that I am not a cupcake. I am going to tell you what I think. You may not agree with me. I may not make you happy. And I'm here to tell it like it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to be neutral. I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm not going to make shit up. I'm just, and I don't really like the cursive words either. Sorry, that just kind of slipped out. But, I feel that there are certain things that need to be talked about, and we're going to talk about them. So let's do it. Now, it seems like everyone pretty much is familiar with this Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt horror show that has unfolded before our very eyes. Before they were arrested, I had never heard the name Ruby Franke, and I was quite happy not having heard the name Ruby Franke. And now I have nightmares about Ruby Franke. So thank her for that, and Jodi Hildebrandt. And this is a story coming out of Utah. And I spent a lot of time in Utah. I went to college, as I told you, in Boulder. I stayed there to go to law school at the University of Denver because I loved it so much out there in the West that I just did not want to come back to New York. The weather is beautiful. It is sunny 360 days a year. And it was just a really happy place to be, because for me, weather is very related to my mood. Seasonal affective disorder is a real thing. So sunshine was important for me, and I loved it out West. Also, at the same time, when I was in college around that time, early 90s, my family had a house in Park City, Utah, that was mostly rented out, but we did get to go there for vacations and for skiing. So I spent a lot of time in Park City, and it's beautiful. Utah is a beautiful, beautiful state. Utah is also very heavily Mormon. That's just a fact. Don't come for me in the comments. Utah is a heavily Mormon state. LDS, the Church of Latter-day Saints. Many, many legislators, government officials, law enforcement, schools are run by people who are of the Mormon faith. And the Mormon faith is very important to the state of Utah. And it would be remiss of me to ignore the fact that a lot of cases that we have seen lately are either connected to or, peripherally connected to the state of Utah and the Mormon faith. We have Corey Richins is the woman who is accused of poisoning her husband with fentanyl and causing his death. She allegedly served it to him in a Moscow Mule, a cocktail. And then she wrote a book about teaching her children how to grieve. That came out of Utah. Lori Vallow and Charles Daybell also spent some time in Utah. Every time I say that she was Mormon or he was Mormon or they met at an LDS convention, they tell me that's not true. I don't know what's true. Maybe they left the church. Maybe Corey Richins left the church. These are cases that are somewhat, in some way, related to Utah and perhaps the Mormon faith. And you're going to hear that from somebody I'm going to play for you. And don't just take it from me. And we're going to see why. So Jodi Hildebrandt was a Mormon therapist. And the reason that is important is because Jodi Hildebrandt was highly recommended by the Mormon Church. She was on their referral list, very high up on their referral list. So when people came to their church elders with issues such as problems in their marriage or problems with their children or problems with their faith, or Jodi Hildebrandt claimed to be an expert on pornography. So if there were issues with that, a lot of people, a very, very high volume of people were sent directly to Jodi Hildebrandt for therapy by the bishops of the Mormon Church. And I'm going to tell you how I know this in a minute. So just to recap a little bit about what happened here, in case there's anybody who doesn't know. Jodi Franke is or was a YouTuber. And yes, I do touch my hair a lot. That's a thing people say too, but it's just because it gets in my face. I'm trying to get out of the way. And I have to look at myself because that's the way StreamYard works. I'm looking at myself kind of, but at my camera, talking to you. Okay. So Jodi Franke was a YouTuber. And she started a family vlogging channel around 2015. And her channel was based on the day-to-day life of her Mormon family. And she may have left the church since then, but in the beginning, they were a Mormon family with 6 children. And she would film pretty much everything that went on in their daily lives, whether these children wanted to be filmed or not. This is a picture of their home. Give me 1 second. This is their home in Springville, Utah. I combined their names twice. All right, wait. We're talking about Ruby Franke right now. Ruby Franke is the mommy vlogger from Springville, Utah, who, by her own words, made millions of dollars from YouTube. Okay, Molly, yeah, she did have credentials, though. She did have credentials to be a mental health provider, and her license was suspended in 2012, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Ruby Franke lived in this lovely home in Springville with her 6 children. And she published videos of the way that she would parent her 6 children. She tried to tout herself as some sort of parenting expert. And what happened with Ruby Franke is that she oftentimes would post these cruel videos of her punishing her children in shocking ways, like taking away her son Chad's bed and forcing him to sleep on a beanbag for 8 months, threatening to cut off the head of the Beanie Baby of her little daughter, who at the time was maybe 3 or 4 years old, because she had been cutting things with scissors. Things like, oh, Mercedes, your daughter's at CU? Yeah, she's going to love it. She's going to love it there. I tell you what, she's never going to come home. That's just, it's a fact. When people go to Boulder, they don't come out. They stay there. It's a very happy place. Good. Congratulations. I hope she loves it. So what Ruby Franke realized, having shoved this camera into her kids' faces for many years, is that the more vicious her punishments became, and the more horrifying to you and me, perhaps, these videos were, the more clicks she was getting, the more likes she was getting, the more money she was making. And she did. She made millions of dollars doing this. So sometime around within the past 2 years, she stopped posting videos on YouTube, and her viewers got concerned because she had 2.2 million followers. And I think a lot of people were following her because they were worried about her children. That's what they say anyway. And a lot of people, like, it was a train wreck, almost like they just couldn't turn away. I don't know that anybody was really following her for parenting advice. God, I hope not, because I've never hit my kids. I've never hit my kids. I'm not a corporal punisher. It's not how I operate. This woman, Ruby Franke, was withholding food from her children. They weren't allowed to eat. She has one video where she makes 3 of her kids get in line and gives them each a bite of a banana, and then they have to go to the back of the line. Like, food was one of the things she loved to withhold. That was one of her things. So last week, August 30th, but eventually after she stopped posting on her own YouTube channel, it was called 8 Passengers, she connected with this woman, Jodi Hildebrandt, who happened to be her son Chad's therapist. Before that, she was the therapist for her brother, Ruby Franke's brother. He posted a nasty review on Jodi Hildebrandt's page or somewhere that we looked at last time I did a live on this case with Oblivious Benson. All that information is back in that video. Jodi Hildebrandt was Chad's therapist. She also was Ruby and her husband Kevin Franke's marriage counselor or marriage therapist. And then all of a sudden, Jodi moves in, Kevin moves out. Jodi and Ruby now have a business together that was originally called Moms of Truth. At one point, it changed over to Connections, where they were doing videos, workshops, and retreats, teaching other Mormons about parenting, about giving them all kinds of advice that they may or may not have been qualified to give, depending on whoever wanted to pay them. They were selling all of this information. So this was not a nonprofit business. Chad is the oldest son. Chad is Ruby's second oldest of her 6 children. Shari Franke, who is the oldest, is 20 now. She escaped that house as quick as she could as soon as she turned 18. Oh, there's actually one video that Ruby posted on her channel that said something like, "This is my house and everything in this house is mine. And when you're 18, you have to leave." Well, Shari did. She's at BYU now, and she's been complaining about the treatment of the children in that house for years, but apparently nobody would listen to her. So last week, I believe it was August 30th, one of Jodi's children, he's 12 years old, escaped from this house. It is Jodi Hildebrandt's house in Ivins, Utah. This is a $3.5 million home built like a fortress. He climbed out a window. He went to a neighbor's house. His ankles were bound in duct tape. He had open wounds on his wrists from rope. He was emaciated. And he asked the neighbor to please call the police and if he could please have some food and water. We're going to listen to that 911 call, the whole 911 call that the neighbor made. It is triggering. I'm going to warn you now. If you have not seen it, it's triggering. This is the fortress that Jodi Hildebrandt lived in Ivins, Utah. So on August 30th, when this young boy escaped, he was 12. Jodi and Ruby were arrested and charged with 6 felony counts each of felony child abuse. Yesterday was their first court appearance. I'm just going to play a little tiny clip for you because this was supposed to be live streamed. Then it wasn't live streamed. But I am going to tell you that they being held without bail. Thank God. So let's just get on here for 1 second. Donna, I saw that and I will address it in 1 second. I just don't want to lose my train of thought right now. So hang on. One second. This is what happened yesterday in court. It was a very, very short hearing. They had been held without bail since their arrest. Take a listen.
Afternoon, Mr. Winward. How are you?
Franke and Hildebrandt had their first court appearance Friday in Washington County.
My case is assigned to Judge Barnes. I would make an oral motion today to transfer this case to Judge Walton so that co-defendants track each other.
The judge granted a switch of Franke's judge to be the same as Hildebrandt's. The two will continue to be held without bond. Hildebrandt's attorney also filed a motion to the court asking for an expedited detention hearing, citing the defendant has experienced a life-threatening medical issue resulting in her hospitalization for several days. As of now, the two are scheduled for court for September 21st. Live in studio, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Okay, so that's Fox 13 in Utah. That's a local channel. I like to go to the local channels for my information about cases because I find that they're more heavily invested and they do really great coverage. So ignore the pop-ups at the end. That wasn't me, that was them. So apparently they're being held without bail, but Ruby Franke was moved to a medical ward. And it's a little hush-hush about why. So we don't know, but they did move her to the medical ward of the prison. If anybody has any info on that, certainly feel free to let me know, but I do not know what the medical issue was. I think we're going to learn some more about that in the upcoming future. So they are being held without bail. There is no way to watch that court appearance at all. It actually had been scheduled for like a Zoom call, so it was open to the public, but so many people logged on. I think about 1,300 people logged on, and it crashed the system. And either at the last minute, the judge just ordered that it was not going to be live streamed because they had problems with the feed, or they just had problems with the feed. I'm not sure, but there were people on Law and Crime for hours. I think there was anybody waiting on Law and Crime, waiting for it to happen. It did not happen. They're going to come back on September 18th for a bail hearing. So that will be the next appearance for that. Oh, Bill's around. Hey, Bill, thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. I love you. Thank you. Bill's one of my besties. Bill and I met in, believe it or not, an acting class, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, it feels like already. I'm also a working actor, and Bill is a stand-up comedian, and that's where we met. And every Tuesday night, we would go into New York City, and we would spend our Tuesday nights together for about 4 hours in scene study class, and we had a really fun time, but that's how we met. And so we've been like great friends ever since. Here's another interesting thing that happened yesterday. I don't know if I want to show this first. Yeah, I think I will. So in the morning, there was a shelter hearing about where the 4 children were going to go, because after the young boy escaped, they also found his sister in the house. And Jodi Franke's other 2 daughters, it's a little confusing, were at the home that I just showed you, which is all the way in Springville, which is 4 hours away from Jodi Hildebrandt's house. Let's do this first. Let's listen to the 911 call from the neighbor. I'm gonna trigger warn you right now, but I want you to hear this whole 911 call because you're not going to believe it. Again, please, if you're sensitive to this type of stuff, it's going to be hard to listen to. It's about 10 minutes long, but I think it's really important to hear. Let me know that you can hear it okay when it starts.
From a neighbor's house, and
911, the address of your emergency. Okay, and the phone number you're calling from. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Okay. Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio.
Okay, cool.
And he asked us to call the police.
What's
So
his
he's
name?
very afraid. What's your last name?
They're blocking out the names. Your sound didn't go out.
He's 12 years old. Yes.
Okay, and then can you ask him his date of birth?
Can you tell me your birthday?
Okay, and are the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for them that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house?
Porch. He went out.
He says you just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodi Hildebrandt, and she lives 2 doors up the street. Yeah, out here in Cayenne, the houses are far apart, so he walked just under a block to get to our house. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so, but he's very thirsty and
Need an ambulance?
I don't think he needs an ambulance. I'll let the cops decide that, but his ankles are taped up and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct tape around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them. I think there's a good chance he's been. Oh, and he has them around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been. This kid has obviously been. I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Okay. Let's get the paramedics headed over that way, okay?
Oh, that's a good idea, too.
Let's see. Has he told you where his mom or dad are?
Haven't asked him that. Yeah. You know where your mommy and...
I really got you.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't matter, son. Do you know where your mom and dad are?
Well, actually, I don't know where my mom is, but I do know where my dad is. He's not anywhere here. No. Nowhere.
Okay. No, he doesn't seem to. He says he knows where his mom is, but
he doesn't know where his dad is.
That's correct.
I do know where my dad is.
Is his mom home?
He doesn't live.
He just says he doesn't live around here.
Okay.
Separate for the
Is his mom
Yeah, we're
in the
getting.
area?
Is your mom around here? Have you seen her lately?
No,
He doesn't know where she is right now.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke? Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
Okay. How do you spell the last name?
Franke.
Franke.
Okay. And does she live in the area?
No, I'm not sure where she lives. He's trying to help us, but he's.
That's okay. We don't want to stress him out too much. The officers will go over all these questions with him anyway. I just want to stay on the phone with you until we get some help there, okay?
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name is.
Can you ask him if any other children were in the home he came from?
Okay. Was there any other kids up at Jodi's house? Anybody else? No. How old? Yeah, this is the 30th of, the 29th of August.
It'll be the 30th of August.
10 and 14, and they're still at this house.
Are they tied up as well?
What's the deal with? Are they being held? Are they? Do they have wounds on them as well?
Nothing bad going on with us.
Okay.
It's just the
Okay. So they're able to walk around the house and everything? Well, okay. He says everything's fine with them. Grain of salt.
That part was confusing to me because apparently this little boy told the neighbor that there were 2 other girls being held at Jodi's house, but I think only one girl was recovered from Jodi's house. So I'm not sure if he was confused, if he was a little bit, he was so hungry that he had started to be a little bit delusional. I'm not really sure, but you can hear this man crying in the 911 call because he was so shook by what he was, the appearance of this little boy and his condition.
Okay.
He says what's happened to him is his fault.
He said what's happened to him was his fault. I don't know which part of this call is the most heartbreaking, but that's in my top 3.
That's sad to hear. They're coming to you as quick as they can, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Really well.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure.
He's fine. I've got him sitting here. My wife, he got him water and giving him something to eat because he's hungry, and I think the young man, he's hearing his stocking feet. So he escaped.
Well, I'm glad that he was able to make it to
They're on their way.
where he could be safe. They should just be pulling up now. Let me know when they're with you, okay?
Will do. I hear a car, but they're not coming on the driveway. You did good. Enjoy that banana, okay?
Yeah, he just
did the right thing.
a few seconds ago, so he might be waiting for his partner. I'm not sure.
Is Jodi up there right now? Okay. Jodi.
He says the little boy says that Jodi is in the house right now. So he had the courage to either climb out a window. I think there's some indication here that he might have left through the porch while that evil monster was actually in the house. Can you imagine how petrified he was?
Jodi Hildebrandt is up there right now.
Okay.
So she may come looking for him here soon, but she's not gonna, obviously. We need the cops here as soon as possible.
I'm just asking where he is now.
Yeah, she's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
He even says she's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad. This poor neighbor.
Okay, let's see. I'm just asking where he is. Well, sounds like he's making a phone call real quick to his sergeant. He is going to head up.
Okay. All right. Well, if we have to take him inside the house, we will. We're just sitting outside right now because we have chairs out here and it was convenient.
That's okay. If anything, he's sitting out down your driveway and keeping an eye on the house. So if that's where you feel safe, that's where the child feels safe. And let's just stay where you're at.
Yeah.
You're on
I think
the
we're doing
porch.
this. Yes.
Does he have anything with him?
But, no, he's wearing a long sleeve shirt and shorts, and it's way too big for him.
Can you tell me what color the shirt and shirt?
Okay, the ambulance is here.
Okay.
So.
Are they with you?
No, they're just not getting out of the truck.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and I'll let you go then. You did a great job.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. First of all, props to that 911 operator for staying calm, for keeping him on the phone the whole time until, backup got there, until the officers were in the driveway. And I mean, you could see how sad and terrified this neighbor was. And they knew she was a bad lady. I wonder how they knew that. I mean, all this is going to come out, but when he says she's a bad lady, we just didn't know how bad. She's a really bad lady. It's heartbreaking. And I put a lot of comments up while this call was playing, and wow, you guys, wow. There was some other 911 audio that we played the other day. And originally we thought that it was not related to this call, but it turns out that it is related to this call. And this was reported by, again, one of the local stations. So I'm going to play this for you. This is what the officers found when they actually arrived at Jodi's home. Let's take a listen to this.
Downstairs underneath the garage.
I have to rewind this.
One control.
Okay.
Can you copy a suicidal?
Hey, LT, there's a panic room inside the garage. Downstairs underneath the garage. Passages through the safe door, the Liberty safe. Yeah, he says it's downstairs and it's underneath one of the garages, and he's calling it a safe room. He said something about Fort Knox, so I don't know if it has a Fort Knox door or safe on it, but that's what he's talking about. Temple, we've got it, but we can't get into it. My guess is that would be where they're at. He says it's a large room, it's a panic room. This one says Liberty Safe Company. It's got a big wheel on the front. Control 30 Alpha 530. Go ahead. You show us out at number 8. Copy number 8. The top drones in here. Tokyo, hold on 23 on 114 Lima. That one is everybody still has the U1 drive or the stand by alibis. I believe they're the second one's not U1. Temple. Yeah, control looks like we're gonna be out of the cab goo one. Temple, update everyone, thank you. Control 30 up 509, we 1063 address, we're out at. Go ahead. 861 West Bronx, Western Drive.
So there had been some confusion about whether or not this audio was related to this call, but in fact this was run by a news channel. I'm going to assume that they did their due diligence on this. People are asking what a panic room is. A panic room is essentially something that some, very, very wealthy people have in their home. Maybe not everyone who has one is wealthy, but it's typically underground. It's typically to be used in case of a home invasion or a nuclear disaster or the end of times, and it's someplace safe that you can go and it's secure to hide from whatever it is that's happening outside that you need to take shelter from. And apparently they had one in the basement of this home, and apparently that's where the young boy said that his sister was. She was 10. It took her 4 hours when she was found to agree to go for medical treatment. I'm sure the EMTs were trying to, treat her very gingerly as a child, and they had child experts in there, and they had to make her feel that she was safe, because you can imagine how terrorized these children were. We don't know how long they were there. We don't know why they were actually at Jodi's house, but in the last live that I did, we went through the probable cause affidavits and we went through the arrest reports. And it turned out, based on the investigation, that Ruby and Jodi had filmed a YouTube video for their Connections channel 2 days before this arrest in that home, which made the police upgrade the charges to felony charges because they said Jodi was just in that house 2 days ago. Ruby, she had to know that her kids were there. And they also found some used gauze in Jodi's bathroom. So that was the reason for upgrading her charges to felony charges and more charges, because she must have known about the open wounds that were caused by rope on the child's arms or wrists because of the used gauze. The fact that he said that it was his fault. You're going to see and you're going to hear from Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, who is going to tell you a very similar story of what Jodi Hildebrandt did to her back in 2005. So it seems that this woman has a long history of using these techniques, these treatments, to chase what she calls the evil out of children. And it is horrifying. I reached out today. Does anybody know who Dr. John DeLynn is? He runs a YouTube channel called the Mormon Stories Podcast. And I reached out to him today because I wanted to see if he would come on the show to talk about this interview that he did with Jessi Hildebrandt, who is Jodi Hildebrandt's niece. And unfortunately, he is traveling. But he said that I could have permission to show some clips of his show on my channel tonight. So thank you to John DeLynn for being so kind. I would never use anyone's content without asking. And he was kind enough to let us watch it. I am going to link the link to the full 3-hour show that he did, the 3-hour interview that he did with Jessi Hildebrandt, in the channel description. In this video description, so that you can watch the whole thing. And I recommend that you do. But since I've been covering this story, we've had a lot of questions about who knew about this, who knew that this was going on, who knew, we had questions about Jodi's sisters and what they knew, because in case you don't know this, Ruby's sisters, I am getting them mixed up again, you guys, I'm sorry. Ruby was the YouTuber. Ruby's sisters all have family vlogging channels. And the grandparents also have a family vlogging channel. I learned in another video by Carl Crusher. Does anybody know who Carl Crusher is? He left the Mormon church. He has a great channel. He's got like 3 million subscribers. And he did a podcast or a video last week when this whole thing broke. He also had a family channel years and years ago. And he says on his channel that the Mormon church actually has a budget for content creators, and that they are very heavily involved in paying YouTube content creators who have Mormon family vlogging channels to publish videos that are complimentary and in praise of the Mormon church. And I don't know why I should be shocked by that, but I was shocked by that. Did anybody know that? So they have a whole division in the church and a whole budget to pay these family vloggers and content creators to sort of pump up the religion, to make everybody think that everything's happy and all hunky-dory in the Mormon faith, and, come join. And you can think of Carl Crusher what you will. I saw a comment in there, but what motivation does he have to lie about that? It's easily proven whether or not they have a budget for content creators. I have no reason to not believe him for that. he was actually a vlogger. So he actually made money. The church actually paid them to make videos. And then he got divorced. And, you know, he had been friends with a lot of these famous, or if you want to say famous or popular Mormon vlogger families at the time that he was married to his ex-wife. So we're going to hear from John DeLynn what he's going to tell you about Jodi being recommended to patients by the Mormon Church. And then we're going to flip through to listen to some of the interview that he does with Jessi Hildebrandt, which is also heartbreaking. Let's turn our attention to John now for a moment. So let me know that you can hear him okay.
And for a long, long time, I'd say for at least 4 years, I have personally known victims of Jodi Hildebrandt. They have come to me and told me that Jodi Hildebrandt wrecked their marriage, wrecked their family, did a lot of damage. But the few times that people reached out to me to tell me about Jodi Hildebrandt, no one was willing to come on the air and talk about it. And so there was really no way that I could cover Jodi Hildebrandt without risking, defamation or whatever. So now that Jodi Hildebrandt is in jail, a few courageous people have reached out and said that they feel safe enough now to tell their story. And one of those very courageous people is Jodi.
Okay, something just happened there where my internet cut out, like really oddly, because I'm on Ethernet, so I have no idea what happened. So if you could tell me where that cut out, I'm gonna have to run this back unless it only cut out on my end. That was really bizarre. Did I freeze or did I totally go off? Thank you, Fios. I'm back on Wi-Fi now. I'm usually on Ethernet, so that was really strange. All right, tell me where we cut off. That was really annoying because we were in the middle of a good part of that. It just said I had no IP address and it just kicked me off the internet. I don't know if that's the Mormon gods telling me that I shouldn't be talking about this, but that's kind of freaky. All right, I'm going to go back to the beginning per someone's excellent suggestion. Again, with the technology gods not being on my side, but whatevs. Whatevs, you guys, you know what happens. Happens to the best of us. And others. that I've recently seen who have really, really quality production crews on their side, which I do not. It's just me. I'm a one-woman show. All right. We're going to just start it over because there's a lot of people who may have just joined. So we are back now with John DeLynn of the Mormon Stories podcast, who has given me permission to play this for you. So don't report me. It's all good.
Ruby, Franke, and Jodi Hildebrandt are in prison. And for a long, long time, I'd say for at least 4 years, I have personally known victims of Jodi Hildebrandt. They have come to me and told me that Jodi Hildebrandt wrecked their marriage, wrecked their family, did a lot of damage. But the few times that people reached out to me to tell me about Jodi Hildebrandt, no one was willing to come on the air and talk about it. And so there was really no way that I could cover Jodi Hildebrandt without risking, defamation or whatever. So now that Jodi Hildebrandt is in jail, a few courageous people have reached out and said that they feel safe enough now to tell their story. And one of those very courageous people is Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, Jessi Hildebrandt. And, if I could just read to you what Jessi sent me, a summary of what Jessi sent me, this will give you an indication of what we're going to be talking about today. Jessi wrote to me,
listen to this.
It's hard to quantify the emotional and spiritual abuse and torture Jodi Hildebrandt caused, and I think I'll probably have to do so anyways for the police. But physically, just to name a few off the top of my head, I experienced being tied up, blindfolded, punched in the back, my knees kicked out, and dragged by my hair upstairs. I was blindfolded and tied and thrown into a car and forced to lay down on the ground so I can't, quote, manipulate people into thinking anything is wrong, close quote. Then drove into the mountains and forced to run up and down the mountain in the snow to, quote, force the sin out, close quote. I was locked in isolation for up to 12 hours a day, only to be let out to use the restroom when she, quote, had time, close quote, between clients, since she still had her therapist license. Mouth duct taped. I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone, even if they spoke to me directly. Food withheld, forced to run, forced to sleep outside in the snow, forced to drop out of school, never allowed privacy, even when using the bathroom, 7 minutes to shower, 2 minutes to use the toilet with the door open, wasn't allowed tampons because she was convinced I was a sex addict and masturbating with them. So if it's not obvious, I want to just give a content warning at
I gave the content warning afterwards. Oh, that was cute, John. So is anybody else shocked by this? And we're not just going to hear it from John. We're going to actually also hear it from Jessi. Jessi tells us in the interview, Jessi uses they, them pronouns. So I'm going to use they, them pronouns. So don't be confused. Jessi tells us that they worked in Jodi's office for a time doing billing. And they said that so much of the billing went back to the Mormon church. Almost all of it. So there were very few self-pay patients at the time. This goes back to 2005. Jessi was 15 years old. She lived in California with her parents. Her father is the brother of Jodi Hildebrandt. And sometime in 2005, her family went to Jodi's house in Utah, where Jodi was living in a different house at the time. And it was her grandparents' 50th, their grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. And there was a party at Jodi's house. And so their family went to stay at Jodi's house. And while they were at Jodi's house, somehow Jodi convinced their parents that, because they were like a bad kid, maybe acting out a little bit, nothing horrific, no drugs, no alcohol, no addiction issues, no crime committing, that the parents should leave Jessi with Jodi so that Jodi could take care of Satan. So Jessi's parents left in the middle of the night to go back to California without telling Jessi, and left Jessi in the care of the monster Jodi Hildebrandt. So let me just go to the next clip that I want to show you. I just got to find my place in the video here because I have it only in one place. Okay, so this is Jessi Hildebrandt. She is the niece of Jodi Hildebrandt. Jodi Hildebrandt's brother is Jessi's father.
That over the past 20, 30 years, the most recommended therapist in the Wasatch Front by the Mormon Church, because every single person that's reached out to me to tell a horrific story says that it was their bishop that recommended Jodi Hildebrandt, because Jodi must have been on a list. And Jodi would always begin her engagements with clients, Mormon clients, saying that she had direct relationships with Mormon apostles, that she was influential in the church developing its mental health programs.
Oh yeah.
So
she's very involved. She had a meeting, I don't remember what apostle, but she went into this meeting, her story. She just told this to people like my grandparents and I, going in, like banging on his desk, talking about the evil, not just the evils of pornography, but the destructive nature of shame, which is just so ironic. But yeah, no, she's been very like, this is crazy thinking about it now. I used to do her billing.
Social media? Oh.
No, I did her billing. Oh. And she would bill the church. And so like every client, essentially, I would say like the vast majority of her clients were from bishop recommendations, just based off of the billing that I would do for her.
Because in the Mormon Church, if somebody can't afford a therapist, tithes and offerings might be used by the bishop, who recommends, his ward members to Jodi. He would then foot the bill. So the church was funding. So the Mormon Church was funding Jodi Hildebrandt's wealth and success and power.
And the church knew, at least my local ward, Bishop Bangeter knew what was happening. And this is getting a little ahead of the story, but people in the church in my ward started becoming very nervous about what was going on. They were becoming very concerned with just my physical, like what I was looking like in the church. And they went to Bishop Bangeter and voiced their concern about they're like, something is wrong. And Bishop went to Jodi and told her, gave her the names of these people. And she would have, what she did, I had to, the reason why these people thought anything was wrong, according to her, was because I was emotionally manipulating them into thinking that. I would go to church and wear a long face and manipulate them into feeling sorry for me, which was a very common theme about through the entire process of living with Jodi. Was if someone liked me, if someone felt sorry for me, it was all because of manipulation. And I was a masterful manipulator. Constantly, I was told this, constantly, to the point where, I mean, I believed it. I was like, you're right. I must be this horrific. And I was already believing I was evil because I was gay. And so she plays into things that are already there. She finds the hot point and then drills into it. And she does this. I almost guarantee anyone that comes forward with a story about Jodi, this is what she did. And so I had to go around. We drove to all these people's homes and she sat me in the car. She told me exactly what I was going to say to these people. She coached me on every word, and I would go in and I would have to apologize to them for manipulating them into thinking that something was wrong, and that Jodi was actually saving my life, and that that God was, this was all brought because of prayer and revelation and visions and dreams, and that Jesus was, and it sounds ridiculous to say now, but at the time it's like, I said, like, Jesus is working here. And it, like, the way she would describe it to me, because she would talk to me a lot about what was happening and why she was doing it, in very, very abusive ways. But she would say, like, we have to do these extreme things because this is spiritual surgery. And that's how she would rationalize it, is that it has to be extreme because we are surgically removing the sin. We're surgically removing the sin from your soul. We're surgically removing Satan from you. And so I would go to house to house. She would tell me exactly what to say. She was in the room. If I would deviate at all from the script, she would be like, and she would pull me back. And then I would be like, I'm sorry, I just try to manipulate you in this moment. Because if I deviated, that was manipulation. And yeah, Bishop Bangerter gave her that information. I had meetings with the bishop with Jodi. Bishop Bangerter had horses, and he likened me to a horse that needs to be broken.
YouTube channel.
He likened her to a horse that needed to be broken. The church knew. She had meetings with the church. The people at the church were concerned about her and her well-being, to the point where Jodi was driving her around house to publicly apologize. This was in 2005 when Jessi was 15 years old. They knew. You want to know who knew? They knew. This is, again, trigger warning on this, but we're going to hear a little bit more about, it's almost like Jodi was performing her own exorcism. And I'll bet you anything, Jessi wasn't the only one who went through this. And this should scare the hell out of everybody.
Tied my wrists, tied my legs, put me in the car, and just started driving. And
okay, this was after Jessi ran away. Jessi ran away more than once, I think, from Jodi's house. And this was, I think, one of the last times she ran away. This was after all of this emotional abuse and these horrible things. She made her sleep outside on a porch for a while in the wintertime. So, if you remember Ruby taking away Chad's bedroom and making him sleep on a beanbag, this is another thing, the deprivation of a place to sleep. So at one point, Jessi was sleeping at first. It didn't get so bad. She explains how it got progressively worse. And I encourage you to watch this entire 3-hour video if you have the stomach for it, because she likened it to boiling a frog. It happens so slowly that you don't realize how bad it is until you realize how bad it is. And at 15 years old, when something like this is happening to you over a relatively long period of time, there's a Stockholm syndrome involved where you become attached to your abuser. I don't think that Jessi became attached to her abuser in a good way at all. But, if this starts to be your normal, and you're sleep deprived and you're food deprived, and, eventually you try and please this person who's torturing you because you just don't want to be tortured anymore. This is horrifying to listen to, but we're going to do it. So let's go. After she ran away, Jodi finds her, and then this was her punishment.
I think we stopped at what I'm assuming at a gas station. And at the gas station, she screamed at me to lay on the ground because I was manipulating people. If people could see me, I was manipulating them into thinking something was wrong. So I laid on the ground. her car, and she drove for what felt like hours into the mountains. And my other grandparents, not my dad's parents, but my mom's parents, parked, I found this out afterwards, were parked at the base of the mountain to make sure I didn't run away. And she had me run up and down for 6 hours, up and down and up and down. And the other part about this type of abuse that I don't think is talked about as much is that 90% of the time you're evil and horrible and wrong, and the abuse is almost unbearable. But then there are moments where you're rewarded and you are now the best thing in the world. And so after these 6 hours of running up and down, the reward that Jodi gave me of acceptance of like, you did it, you did the thing. It creates this cycle of, which I think is already the foundation and the prerequisites of this is already instilled in the Mormon church of having to earn love. But that has affected my life forever, for the rest of my life, of if I try a little harder, if I do a little bit more, maybe they'll love me, maybe they'll accept me, maybe they'll whatever. In this case, it was really extreme, where the abuse was so extreme. But then if you would bear it, then you would get these moments of immense reward from her. And it's just such a psychological fuckery.
We're going to stop it there for a minute. Go to some comments. So this was 2005, 18 years ago. You can see how deeply affected she still is by this. You heard a mention of duct tape, which is something that we heard about in the more recent case involving Ruby's children. When I watched this for the first time, I was just speechless, and every time I watch it, I'm still speechless. So Jodi's been doing this type of torture on children. What'd you say? Scaring the Satan out of her, getting rid of the devil, spiritual. What? Help me, my friends. Thank you, RB, for this $2 super chat. LDS Church paid Jodi to be a member's therapist. And again, RB with the $2 super chat. If you can't afford a therapist, one will be appointed for you. Yeah. Yep. And because they had this meeting with the church, I'm going to tell you right now, legally, liability wise, the church was on notice of this and they did nothing to stop it. And we're going to see also what the neighbors knew, because I have a clip of that about Ruby's treatment of her kids and how many complaints and 911 calls there were from concerned neighbors and from Ruby's oldest daughter. I don't know what's in the water, guys. I don't know what's going on, but anybody who cares about children at all needs to be outraged by this, because if anybody took Jessi seriously 18 years ago and charges were brought and Jodi Hildebrandt might still be in jail, perhaps Ruby Franke's son wouldn't have been bound with rope and duct tape and scarred for life, just not emotionally, but physically, as well as his younger sister, who is 10, that was also held hostage in Jodi Hildebrandt's house. Maybe that never would have happened. Hey, Utah, listen up. Yes, I agree. Cali Gal Life, churches knowing and not stopping things is not confined to LDS. No. And I said at the beginning of this video, I took on the Catholic Church as an attorney. I filed a lawsuit on behalf of 50 or 60 survivors of clergy sex abuse against the Diocese of Rockville Center here in New York, all the way back in around 2002 when the whole scandal broke. I am Catholic. I filed a lawsuit against my own church for $1 billion. And at the time, that was a lot of money because not everybody was suing for $1 billion, just to make a point. And what I discovered during discovery would shock you. The way the church had internal policies to prevent parents who would come and complain about abuse from going to authorities. They had written policies in place that were written by monsignors and higher ups in the Catholic Church who also happened to be lawyers. They were priest lawyers. They had policies in place. This is not limited to the Mormon Church. I am not Mormon Church bashing. This happens in a lot of organized religions and a lot of other types of organizations. You see it in the Boy Scouts, just to name a few. No organization, no religion is immune from CA. And there were a lot of adults that were abused too and taken advantage of because of their faith. So this is not, this is not Mormon bashing, you guys. Not at all. Jordan, what you got in the water up there, Utah? Around the world, religious extremists almost always destroy the souls of their victims. That is, thank you, Margaret, from this devout Catholic. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, and you know what was the saddest part about the cases that I had? Even after the Suffolk County Grand Jury rendered I forget how many hundreds long report saying that all this stuff actually happened, naming the priests, A, B, C, D, E, that our lawsuits were thrown out of court for these people because they said we came forward too late. Because most survivors of child SA never tell anyone. Many of my clients were men, so they weren't telling anybody. There's a lot of guilt and shame involved being a survivor, and anybody who's a survivor will tell you that. It is not something that's easy to talk about. So when the scandal first broke, I remember this like it was yesterday, and this was 2002. Newsday, which is the local Long Island newspaper, had the cover of Newsday was a picture of a priest, and it was the first one who had been accused after this scandal broke. And I had a client who was a young man. He was in his 20s, and I represented him in a car accident or something. And he came into me with the paper. He threw it down on my desk and he said, that guy did the same thing to me. So these cases were thrown out of court on statute of limitations, and eventually we changed the law. And I went through this at the beginning of the video. If you did not, if you weren't here for the beginning of the video, certainly go back into the replay crew, watch it later. Thank you also to the replay crew who's ever watching this. That is not live with me. We appreciate your views very much. Feel free to share out the video. Also, go back and watch this Mormon Stories podcast episode that I'm also going to link below. Do we know why Jodi is in the hospital? It's not Jodi that's in the hospital. It's Ruby that's in the hospital. And somebody said earlier that she was refusing food and water. So I don't know if she's on a hunger strike. I don't know. I don't know, but we're going to go back to that in a minute because we're going to talk about what happened at the shelter hearing yesterday in the morning in juvenile court that Kevin also showed up to, and what was decided and what was talked about. Thank you to Becky Barnes. I'm absolutely outraged as a mama for I find it completely unacceptable that someone knew and did nothing to stop this evil abuse. Me too. Becky, me too. And I saw it in the cases that I handled against the diocese here. And I'll tell, here's another part of that story that, I get sidetracked sometimes in my conversations, but I represented at least 50 or 60 men and women who were survivors of clergy SA as children. And there was one priest in particular. I had a number of priests as defendants in my case, as well as the diocese. There was one priest who had molested, I think, 10 or 12 of my clients between 1978 and 1992 in at least 5 different parishes. Isn't that nice? So what they would do is after they got complaints about Father whoever at parish A, they would just shuffle him over to parish B, but they didn't tell anybody at parish B, like, be careful. Father so-and-so likes little boys or little girls. They just put him in a different parish. And then he would go on to abuse the children there. And then when somebody complained, then they put him in another parish. So my 10 or 12, these were boys, men at the time that I represented them, had all been abused by the same priest over a period of however many years I just said in about 5 different parishes. So like I'm saying about Jessi, had anybody done anything about it in 2005 when she complained, just like my clients, had anybody done anything about that particular priest in 1978, he would not have gone on to molest 10 more boys in other parishes across Long Island. So there's that. 22 tantrums. She broke almost every sacred, legal, and ethical requirement for mental health professionals, and Jodi still has a license. A mandatory reporter is an abuser. Yeah. And, you know, we see that a lot. And here's something else that I've seen a lot, because I did handle a lot of cases involving CA. And there are certain people who are pedos that are attracted to certain positions or certain occupations because they have unfettered access to children. So think about that. You know, and I'm not saying all priests are bad, and I'm not saying all Boy Scout leaders are bad, and I'm not saying all coaches are bad. But does someone who has predilections for pedophilia go towards one of those professions or occupations because it gives them access to children, and they become a person of trust in a child's life that a child will trust, and they groom their victims very carefully. They know who to pick. They know who's not going to tell. In the cases that I handled, they would often target children who came from broken homes, had alcoholic parents, had large families. So maybe there were 7 or 8 siblings, and this kid wasn't getting a lot of attention. So when Father Bud came over for dinner on Sunday night to your house, you were not only like the big dogs of the neighborhood, but, you know, the priest was looked at as God. He would threaten the boy to say, "Who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe you? Oh, and by the way, if you tell anybody, I'll kill your whole family." I mean, they know who to target. Jodi knew that her niece wasn't going to tell anybody, but her niece actually did tell, and nobody believed her. But I digress. Yes, she still had a license. Apparently her license, and we went over this on the other live the other night, her license was suspended in 2012, Jodi's therapist license, because she broke privilege. And, you know, there's a patient-client confidentiality, or at least there's supposed to be. And Jodi was treating a couple for their marriage issues and convinced the husband, and this was in the Salt Lake City Tribune or whatever the paper was at the time. This happened to them in 2008. She convinced the husband that he had a pornography addiction and that he needed to be treated. And this is like her MO. She would wedge herself in between these couples, just like you're going to see she did with Ruby and Kevin, and mesh herself into their lives. And he claims that she broke up his marriage, but not only did she do that, she went to the Mormon elders in his church and told them about his alleged pornography addiction. And I believe that he was either excommunicated from the church or something, but he brought a lawsuit or some kind of charges against her. And it led to her eventually in 2012 having her license suspended for 18 months. Coincidentally, in 2012, that's when Jodi Hildebrandt started her Connections or Moms of Truth. I think it was, I don't know what it was called at the time, her channel. And we looked at her bio on her website and stuff. That's the one that Oblivious Benson was with me in the video for. And she had a pivot, clearly, because her license had been suspended for this breaking of privilege. She has no ethical boundaries. She knows nothing about ethics. And clearly, not only Are you not supposed to live with your patients, which she did with Jessi? And again, we see this with Ruby's children. I mean, the lines between patient, there's so many things that are wrong here. That's probably the least of the things that are wrong here. But let's just go back a little bit. I want to rewind to one portion of Jessi's video where she talks about the way that Jodi would rationalize her behavior. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute while I find this. It may not be exactly where I want it, but it's only a couple seconds away. Okay.
With a 10-foot pole. If my niece needed therapy, I would recommend someone. I would recommend a program if they needed that program. But Jodi also was convinced that I was a drug addict. She was convinced I was a sex addict. She was convinced that I had abortions. She was convinced that she was convinced of so many insane beliefs. Like, and she would, I know I mentioned this on like text. She would rationalize and validate these types of behaviors through dreams and visions. She would have these dreams that like, God came to her and told her that I had had an abortion. And so no matter what I said, I was a liar. And then and also she was convinced that every word that came out of my mouth was a lie. And that, you know, gave her rationale to put duct tape on my mouth. And that's why I was always duct taped.
Duct tape. Because
every word I said was a lie. And that needed to be like physically reiterated and to show that as a reminder that everything I say is a lie. So everyone around me, my cousins, my cousins specifically, they were terrified of me. And like, I wasn't allowed to speak to my parents. I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone alone. And then then like with the duct taping, I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone. So if I was at church and I wasn't duct taped and a church leader came in, because this happened, a church leader would come and be like, "Are you okay?" And I would have to just stare at them. Because she also had spies. She had people reporting back to her anything and everything that I did. So if I did talk to someone, she found out somehow. Like, the amount of paranoia and fear that I had, whereas like I can't talk to anyone. And also people saw me duct taped. People saw that these things were going on. And other than like the few people that like went to Bishop and being like, "Hey, something's wrong," no one did anything. And I believe, because of the culture of the church, of this patriarchal familial setup, of like, my dad is the patriarch of our family, right? He's supposed to receive revelation for his family. And so if he is in support of something, it must be good. It must be because God gave him revelation that this is the right thing. And so it creates the system of not challenging things that should be challenged. And it disempowers, especially women, to not challenge anything and not voice anything. Yeah, I mean, I know this timeline is going to be kind of
no, this is amazing. And Gerardo's asking me to remind everyone, this is such an important story. It speaks to Jodi Hildebrandt, but it speaks to purity culture. It speaks to high demand religions, to Mormon culture, and to other Christian and other religions in general. Just purity culture is so destructive, and mental health Mental health ethics are so important. And the fact that Jodi was given access to Mormon apostles and was strategizing for the Mormon church on how to deal with mental health, but more specifically porn and masturbation and homosexuality, as the church likes to call it. It's so systemic. It's much, much bigger than Jodi. I'm just going to ask really quickly. We have 6,000 viewers and listeners.
Okay. So props to John DeLynn for handling this with such incredible sensitivity and such incredible kindness, because I know firsthand how difficult it is to be able to gain a survivor's trust, to have them be able to speak openly to you. Props to Jessi she's a tattoo artist now, and for being able to, it seems, have put some semblance of recovery together for herself. I don't know if she's been in intensive therapy, but she seems to be a very bright young woman who has a great future, and she's not letting these horrifying things that happened to her define her. So many of my clients who had been through things like this as children were unable to keep jobs. Many of them turned to substances to escape from the pain and the torture that their brain went through remembering this. They couldn't sleep because, and remember, my clients, by the time they came to me, these were things that happened to them as children that maybe were 20 years ago or more that they had never told anyone, that were unable to hold a job, unable to ever trust anyone again. Ever. Can you imagine how the trust is broken and how hard it would be to ever trust another human being again when your aunt, who is supposed to be a loving person in your life that you trust, abuses and tortures you like that in the name of Satan and good and evil? I think she's made an amazing recovery. I think she's an amazing young woman, and I'm proud of her, and I don't even know her. So thank you, Duty Ron, for chiming in here for your $20 super chat. Anything extreme is dangerous. Thank you, Attorney Melly, for this great coverage, and thank you for taking on the Catholic Church. Thank you. Unfortunately, it was a very long, very drawn out fight, and my clients didn't really. I mean, eventually the church decided to settle some cases out of the goodness of their heart because they knew the law was about to change, and then they were going to get hit with all these lawsuits. But it took about at least 15 years for that to happen, maybe longer. RB again with the $2 super chat. Duct tape modus operandi. Yep. And you heard it from Jessi's mouth. Put a 1 in the chat. No, let's do this. Put a J in the chat if you believe what Jessi had to say. Put an N in the chat if you don't believe what Jessi had to say. Because I heard somebody say that this was all hearsay, and well, it's not hearsay because this is direct witness testimony. So let's give me a J for Jessi if you believe Jessi. And an N if you don't believe Jessi. A lot of people believe in Jessi. Sarah D, I'm so sorry. I'm a child victim. With God and Jesus Christ, all things are possible. I'm absolutely healed, set free, and delivered, and the most stable person you can ever know. Wow, Sarah. Congratulations to you. I'm really, really sorry for what happened to you as a child, but I am going to tell you, you are the exception rather than the rule. So many people can't get past it. And really, who could blame them? Especially when it's someone you're supposed to trust. I mean, congratulations to you. I don't know how you were able to get through it, but that's amazing. That's really, really amazing. You should be really proud of yourself. A lot of people believe Jessi. You're so sensitive. Thank you, Calla Lily. That's one of my favorite flowers. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of experience doing this. I have 5 kids of my own, and these stories about children horrify me. I've never hit my kids. I can't even imagine what kind of a monster could duct tape a child's mouth shut in the name of treatment, therapy, cure. in the name of helping a child. I'm blown away by this. I know that some parents, believe in spanking. I don't. I believe in consequences. Time out. My kids are older now, but so we don't have to, do those things. But I just, they're monsters. They are absolute monsters, 100%. So let's get back to, thank you, John DeLynn, for allowing us to show your Mormon Stories podcast interview of Jessi. I'm going to link it below. I ask you to watch it. It's done with incredible sensitivity. It's giving us so much insight into Jodi, into Jodi's torture methods. And she will be, if she's allowed to testify, a key witness in the case against Jodi. This goes to her prior bad acts. And I don't know if the statute of limitations is expired in Utah. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that for the criminal acts that she obviously perpetrated upon Jessi. But I hope that something can be done. Yeah. All right. There's also reports. We were talking about who else knew. So, well, the church knew about Jodi. The bishops knew about Jodi. There had been lots of complaints about Jodi, but there had also been a lot of police calls to Ruby's house. So let's take a look at a clip from, this is KUTV, Salt Lake, about some calls that were made to the house in Springville. Still, a lot of neighbors are very afraid to talk. They won't talk.
2 News has been looking into past interactions she had with police. Records show law enforcement received more than a dozen calls to 2 homes over several years, but Springville police told 2 News incident reports were not created for a majority of them. Some of those calls Ruby Franke made herself, reporting she was being harassed. But in September 2022, her oldest daughter called police, worried about her siblings, who she said had been left at home alone for days. Police responded and said they saw the kids through the windows, but they wouldn't answer the door. They also said neighbors outside expressed concern about the children and that they would contact the Utah Division of Child and Family Services. Now, I did reach out today to one of those neighbors who was named chiefly in that complaint from last September, but I have not heard back from her yet. I also reached out today to DCFS, but haven't heard anything from them either at this point. Live in Utah County, Daniel Woodruff, KUTV 2 News.
All across the state, Utah County, that is where Ruby Franke and her family live.
Hold on a second. Okay, good. Well, this just automatically popped up. Okay, so let's just talk for a second about how police were called to the house by Cherry Franke, oldest daughter of Ruby Franke, in whatever month that was. And the law enforcement goes to the house, and she had told them that the children had been left alone for a very, very long time, her 4 younger siblings, because when Chad turned 18, he split and went off with the dad somewhere, because the dad also disappeared and left these 4 children in Ruby Franke's custody, which later 2 of them at least were found in Jodi Hildebrandt's custody. And the police said that the children just wouldn't answer the door. So they just left. They just left and said they were going to call the DCFS. I have a lot of questions about that. You don't bang the door down? I don't know. Duty Ron, are you in the chat? Duty Ron? WTF? I have a lot of questions. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the first court appearance was yesterday. That hearing crashed because so many people tried to log on. So this is just a little clip of what happened yesterday in court. It was a very short hearing.
all across the state, Utah County, that is where Ruby Franke and her family lived. One house and also a second house shortly thereafter. And Amanda Gilbert was in southern Utah. We're going to try to go back to Amanda real quick. Do we have Amanda? We do.
All right.
All right, Amanda,
All right,
take it away.
I think you can hear me. Yes, well, we have some technical difficulties, but actually something that happened today with that initial appearance for this case is they also had technical difficulties. The Washington County Courthouse told me they have never had this many people attending a virtual hearing before. They told me the number is around 1,300 people attended the initial appearance. They had hundreds of other people waiting in a virtual lobby that never even got in. And basically in the initial appearance today, it was the judge said that both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt would be held on no bail until the next hearing. Now, I actually was at the courthouse and I met some people who were just outside in person because they said they were just that interested in the case. I spoke with one college student who said she remembers watching Ruby Franke's YouTube channel way in the past, all day, every day. So this is just a case she's been following very closely. And actually, Shani, I am in Ivins right now. We've spent the whole day kind of out in the neighborhood of Jodi Hildebrandt's house. We've talked to neighbors. They basically told me, as you might be able to see if I move around a little bit, this is just a very secluded, private neighborhood. The houses are very spread apart. So they're just very shocked and saddened that this happened here. And I'm outside Jodi Hildebrandt's house. Again, a recap, this is where reports say one of Ruby Franke's sons escaped and then walked to a neighbor asking for help. So coming up tonight at 10, you're going to hear from neighbors. We'll go over that initial appearance again. Back to you, Brian.
Amanda, before you go, you were in the courtroom today, and I know that wasn't necessarily the plan. You were planning to do something else, and then we went over there because of the very challenging virtual WebEx situation which you described. Can you just quickly paint a picture of what that atmosphere was like? Obviously, both of the co-defendants now in this case, because they're now using one judge, they were not there. They were obviously appearing there virtually. So what was the atmosphere like? Were people trying to get in? What was the mood like there?
It was very quiet. I would say there was only about 5 to 10 people connected to the case that were actually there. So they usually got in and sat near the media. It was very somber. We did try to talk to both Hildebrandt and Franke's attorneys after, but they kind of pushed us aside, went straight to a different room. Not a lot was said, but yes, very quiet, somber experience.
Amanda Gilbert live for us in southern Utah tonight. As I mentioned, this extends really statewide when you look at the two women that are involved in this. Continuing our team coverage, Brian Malahi back in that neighborhood.
Okay, so that was yesterday's court appearance. They are coming back on September 18th for a bond hearing. They are currently being held without bail. We heard some reports that Ruby was taken into the medical ward. We don't really know what's wrong with her. And yesterday morning, there was a shelter hearing that was held in juvenile court in Utah. And I found this very interesting too. This hearing was open to the public. So this was on a WebEx. And there's some confliction about what happened during this hearing. But Ruby appeared via video, and Kevin Franke showed up in person. I'll show you a picture of Kevin. He showed up to this hearing because it's called a shelter hearing. It's to determine where the 4 children are going to now be placed or reside while Jodi's in jail. Ruby, sorry, you guys, Ruby, while Ruby is in jail. Here's Kevin at the courthouse yesterday. So during this shelter hearing, Ruby appeared by video. Kevin appears in person with his attorney. And it's reported that Ruby was sobbing during her testimony. And during her testimony, she made shocking claims that one of her minor children sexually SA'd their sibling and molested several other family members and children in the neighborhood over the years. They didn't say which child it was, but she, during this hearing, threw one of her kids under the bus. Kevin Franke was asked after the hearing about these allegations, and, he said no comment, although he's looking to have custody of these children. And I would submit to you that he does not get custody because he was part of this YouTube channel for so many years. He participated in these videos. It's hard for me to believe that he didn't know what was going on. And where the hell has he been? How long does it take to starve a child to the point where they are visibly emaciated and being held hostage in Jodi's house? And where's dad? Not checking on the kids, not having any visitation whatsoever. There's no divorce filing. There has been no separation filed. There was no custody proceedings happening. This shelter hearing was a 30-minute hearing. Apparently it was open to the public and it was on WebEx. Why they didn't mute the people that were on the WebEx is beyond me, but apparently some people started getting salty and saying some crazy stuff over the WebEx, and then I think the WebEx part of it was cut off. So here's Ruby now blaming her behavior towards her children on her children, and goes into this horrific story about how one of her children started looking at pornography at 3 years old and then had been abusing the younger sibling for years. And then that led to them abusing other children. And then she says that in May, this child that she's talking about of hers confessed to SAing 20 people, including cousins and neighbors. She provided no proof of these sickening allegations. And after she said that, the court went eerily silent. And then the judge said that the alleged abusive child, quote, will then need to be placed in a home with no other children. It seems to me that he was quoting directly from the probable cause affidavit, because the only thing that Jodi Hildebrandt said to law enforcement after she was arrested, after I want a lawyer, is that those two children should not be allowed any other children. And I'm a little bit horrified that the judge took those exact words in open court and said the same exact thing. Anybody else horrified by that? So there's going to be a mediation hearing on September 15th regarding the placement of the children, and then a pre-trial hearing on the 18th. And I think that's related to the criminal case, the Ruby and Jodi case. I don't know. You guys help me with this. Then it says here, and I don't know, this is not the greatest source, but it says that there was an attorney in the viewing area, and it's on tape, so I have to assume that is true, that somebody saw this WebEx, that another attorney got up from the gallery in the courthouse and said, we'd like to hear details about this alleged abuse of other children, because my client is a mother of one of the alleged victims. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Is this going to be their defense, that the children deserved it, that we had to torture them to get the evil out? This gets worse and worse and worse. And I think the more time that goes on, the more survivors of Jodi Hildebrandt's abuse are going to come out. And this is going to be a crazy shit show like we have not seen in quite some time in this true crime community. Jacqueline, yeah, so she can continue torturing these kids if it's true, even though I don't believe it's all true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to believe. Why was she taken to the medical ward? What's wrong with her? Does she have any chronic conditions, or was she is she on a hunger strike now? Or is she just batshit crazy? The whole family needs to be deprogrammed. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, good point. Getting back to basics. Oh no, this was not the chat's moving so fast, you guys, that I go to highlight a comment and then it's gone. And then it's gone. KCL says, I wonder if they're going to say next that the children duct taped and put the rope on themselves. Well, yeah. I mean, we already have so many witnesses to this. The neighbor, Jessi, can testify as to the prior duct tape involvement. Seems to be Jodi's torture device of choice. And can you imagine at one point in the video with Jessi, Jessi does say that she thinks that Jodi was the mastermind behind all of this, because we discussed that in the last live stream that we did on this topic. And we were speculating, like, who was the mastermind? Was it Jodi? Did Jodi pull the strings of Ruby? Was Ruby the puppet and Jodi was the mastermind? And in Jessi's opinion, Jodi was the mastermind. These are torture methods that she's been using since at least 2005 with her own niece. Mercedes says, Kevin was involved with all those harsh punishments. He also deserves time, and the kids should not be around him. And I completely agree with you. Becca says she's not eating or drinking water, supposedly. Oh, well, isn't that interesting? She's withholding food from herself now instead of her children. Really interesting. Complicated says she has to have a severe illness, sickness, or problems in order to be held in medical. Medical does not just allow anybody to take up their space. It's very limited and it's only for extreme cases. Okay. I thought you were saying there were only maybe 4 beds in the medical ward. Like you had some insight into this, the jail where they are being held. Molly says, yeah, Kevin did nada to stop any of this, and he actively participated in connections as well. Yep. 3 of Cats. Kevin was active on the YouTube channel, and I am very uncomfortable with the kids being around him either. Agreed. I agree. And if you look at Shari's Instagram, she's been very loud about this. Shari is the oldest Franke daughter, and she's been very, very vocal. When they were arrested, she posted something like, finally they're getting arrested. She claims that she's been trying to get DCFS and law enforcement involved for years. And we just saw evidence of that when the local Utah station ran that story about how the police showed up and the kids wouldn't let them in the house. And so they just left, apparently, and said they were just going to call DCFS. But it's been reported that Jodi would leave the children alone for weeks while she went to these retreats that she was running with her puppeteer, Jodi. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the chat, because I now have a little time to look at the chat. Okay, Casey, thank you for this. Shari and Chad, 2 oldest kids, had been living with Kevin, their father, before she went to college, before Shari went to college. Okay, so I think when they turned 18, I thought they were kicked out of the house. So I don't know. I don't know the timeline here, but perhaps Kevin is, I think Shari is actually at school. I know she goes to BYU. I think that perhaps Chad is living with Kevin. But still, why is he not checking on the rest of the kids? Especially if he knew or should have known that they were being abused, starved by his wife. And I've seen him on some of those videos too, from the old 8 Passengers channel. And, he looks like kind of a disciplinarian too, to be kind. I don't know if I should play this or not, and I probably don't, because I don't really want to dox Chad, because my heart goes out to him. But you can look at Shari Frankie's TikTok. If you have TikTok, it's called 8 Passengers Over. And there's a really cringe video of Chad where it looks like he's talking about, he's saying like, and he seems catatonic. He's saying, thank you so much for watching our stretching video. And we really thank you for coming and watching our channel. And it looks like he's either reading off of cue cards, or he is like severely dehydrated, and he had been, and it's terrifying to just see this. It's on Shari Frankie's TikTok. It's heartbreaking. How long has this been going on? Who knew about it? Why didn't anybody do anything to stop it? I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it louder for those in the back. Had anybody listened and believed Jessi in 2005 about the abuse that she was suffering at the hands of monster Jodi, Mormon therapist Hildebrandt, these children, these 2 children of Ruby Franke, may never have been tortured to the extent that they were by this woman. And there's a lot of failures here. There are a lot of failures. You can start with the church, and you can go to law, and you can go all the way down the list. Apparently, Ruby took her children out of school and was homeschooling them. Because again, as we talk about grooming, children to be victims of abuse, take them out of school. Now you have no mandatory reporters who are going to, perhaps call authorities or DCFS when the kids are sent to school with no lunch, like that crazy video that we played in another live of Ruby's on her 8 Passengers channel, how the little girl who was 6 years old forgot to pack her lunch and bring it to school because she was responsible at 6 years old in kindergarten for packing her own lunch. And the teacher called, and Ruby in her car made a video, and she does a lot of videos driving around for some reason. This one's always like taping while she's driving, which is completely dangerous. And she's got her kids in the car, but she's sitting in the car by herself, and she says, my daughter's teacher called, and, she said that she forgot to bring her lunch to school. So she was asking me to bring her a lunch to school. And I said to the teacher, I said, well, I know that it would ease your discomfort if I brought her lunch, but she really needs to know what it's like to go hungry, because next time she won't forget to pack her own lunch. And she was almost giddy about it in this video. Like she was giving out the best little nugget of parenting advice that she could, and that everybody should really, really listen to her. So she's been withholding food and all kinds of stuff like that for years. Since at least 2015, when she had a camera in front of her kids' faces. So this is big. I think this is going to be a lot bigger. I think this is shining a light on the YouTube family vlogger community. I'm going to go back to, because I see we have a lot more people in the chat now. We have 1,400 people in the chat. When we started, I don't recall how many we had, but it wasn't 1,400. So if you weren't here, I'm going to repeat a couple things. Please hit the like button while you're here. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. Feel free to share this video out. Please subscribe, and please hit the bell for all notifications, so you will get all notifications when I go live or upload a video. I usually go live because I don't like editing. And we keep it classy, and we're very interactive, and I'd rather be live because I get to interact with you and take your questions and your comments. And I get to, I like to hear what you guys are thinking too, but it's better than making a video in a void and not being able to really engage with anyone. So Carl Crusher has a YouTube channel. He left the Mormon church. He was a Mormon family vlogger many years ago. During his marriage, he's now divorced. And he did a video recently after this arrest, and he enlightened me, because I watched it, to the fact that the Mormon church has a budget for Mormon family vloggers on YouTube, and that they get paid for making videos by the church about how great the Mormon faith is, and how happy these families are and living in the light, or whatever he called it. I can't recall right now. Not to be disrespectful to any church beliefs, but I just don't recall what he called it. And he said that around the time that YouTube split into I'm not sure, I think it's YouTube Kids and regular YouTube, the Mormon church had a huge meeting and called all these family vloggers in because they were a little bit shook by that. And they had to strategize on how they were going to get their message out there with all of these family vloggers. I think family vlogging is it's not my jam. I don't watch people's day-to-day lives because I don't find that engaging. I have 5 kids of my own, and I can't imagine shoving a camera in their face since the day they were born and putting their most private, embarrassing moments all over YouTube for their friends to see, like, your daughter's first bra shopping experience, or your daughter learning how to shave her legs, or your daughter's first period, or any of the many other embarrassing moments for a child. And then your child has to go to school the next day and face all their friends, knowing that all of their friends would see every embarrassing moment of theirs on television. So, I mean, on YouTube, but I call it television because I watch it all the time. But there's no regulation, okay, for child protection in family vlogging. And there needs to be. France has recently enacted a law to protect child influencers. And Illinois, just this month, enacted a law to protect child influencers because children do not have the ability under the law to consent to any of this, to have their personal moments out there in perpetuity on the internet. Because as you know, even if you delete something, Oblivious Benson will tell you it's still on the internet. It can still be found. Children don't have the ability to consent to that. Ruby Franke admitted she was making millions and millions of dollars. Her children aren't being compensated in any way. Shari Franke has said that when she left the house at 18, the day she left, her bank account was emptied by her parents or her mother or someone, and she had nothing. Children need to be protected. I wish parents would stop exposing their children. Disgusting. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. So this is a big problem. Apparently, this is a whole genre on YouTube of these family vlogging channels. And, until these people were arrested, I didn't know it exists. My kids knew. They've been watching some of these family vlogs, for a long time. But let me know what you think about that. Yeah, at least this didn't end like the Hart family. Yeah. Or how about this? What if our little 12-year-old king of courage who escaped from Jodi Hildebrandt's house, what if he didn't escape? We could be looking at another Lori Vallow type situation. A lot of people in my comments have likened Jodi Hildebrandt to Chad Daybell. Jodi equals Chad. I mean, this is horrifying, you guys. It's horrifying. It's bad. And something needs to be done. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It was bad enough back in the day when your parents talked to strangers in line at checkouts. Yes. Yes. Or even like at the, at the dinner table. Like, oh, you got your period today for the first time. And then it became like an embarrassing moment in front of your family. Or grandma would come over and they would, hassle you to play the piano for grandma. Like that, like we were never in my generation exposed to anything like this. The technology didn't exist. Sweet one. Jodi threw out Chad's clothes and he had to get a job to buy his own clothes. Yes, she made millions from filming him. Yes. Yes. What was the name of the channel that I just mentioned? I mentioned too, Carl Crusher with a C. He left the Mormon church and he has like 3 million followers, and he talks about his experiences of being a family vlogger and how the Mormon church has a budget for that and compensates Mormon family vloggers. and also Mormon Stories podcast, which is the podcast that we watched. John DeLynn did the interview of Jodi's niece, Jessi, who was also physically tortured by Jodi going back all the way to 2005. Mercedes, there should be a law about minors on social media, parents or not. Yeah. I think I just addressed this, but Stephanie asks, how did that former LDS guy have that insider scoop on the bloggers being paid? Because he was one of them. He was one of them. His family, he and his wife, when they were married, had a family vlogging channel. He became friends with all of the other Mormon family vloggers. They have a whole community of them. I think he lived in Utah. I can't quite recall, but they all used to hang out together. They all knew each other, and they were all getting paid by the church to make certain videos. Mace, has the Mormon Church issued an official statement yet? The longer it takes, the less genuine it will seem. I don't know. If anybody knows that, please send it to me. You can message me on Instagram. Just because I don't always respond doesn't mean that I don't see your messages. I just get so many of them that it's hard to respond. Autumn Blonde, I hope laws are passed regarding family vlogging. No children are allowed to be trafficked through these channels. Yeah, it's a dangerous, the World Wide Web is dangerous, and it doesn't have to just be the dark web. It's the real web that you and I can, and our children can navigate and have access to. Kelly says, Ruby thinks everyone watching 8 Passengers was for her stellar parenting when it was mostly teens watching for the kids. Yeah, that's the other thing too. It attracts some creepers who are watching your children and some deviants who enjoy watching children be tortured. So let that sink in for a minute. And please, parents, please, I am begging you, stop posting pictures of your teenage daughters in bikinis on Facebook. Please stop. What are you doing? Yeah, it's great that your kid got into this college and she's going off to college this week and you're putting on a whole photo montage. Don't post her picture in a bikini. Thank you. I mean, it's going off to college time, and I have seen more teens in bikinis than I'm just like, do you guys know who's looking at this? I'm verklempt. All right, Laura Lee. Hi, Laura Lee. Department of DCSF is the worst. Google your local office and see how many stars they have. Mine has 2 and hasn't answered in at least 2 years. Yeah. Oh, and another thing, when I was listening to Jessi recount how she was forced to sleep outside in the snow and in the cold, and it brought back horrifying memories of Thomas Valva for me. And if you guys don't know about the Thomas Valva case and you are sensitive, don't look it up, because that was a case that happened here on Long Island where this little boy and his brother were forced to sleep by his father, who was law enforcement, and the step monster in a freezing cold garage for months. And he eventually succumbed and passed away, this little boy. And the teachers had been calling and calling and calling for such a long time. And the mother of these boys was in court all the time trying to get back custody of them, and she could not. Nobody would listen. And that poor boy is gone. And Duty Ron went to his funeral, and he said it's the saddest thing he ever saw was to see that little boy in a casket in a white suit. Horrifying. Sleeping in a cold garage. Thank you, Elizabeth Graham. I've really been waiting for an attorney's take on this. I hope I did not disappoint. I get very emotional and very, I'm going to call it passionate about these cases, because I'm not going to just sit here and read you legal documents and talk about them. I do that sometimes, but I put my own spin on it. So these things horrify me, and I'm not going to pretend that they don't horrify me. Thank you, Jamie Lynn. Agreed 100% about the live videos. Yeah, I like this so much better too. And we're creating such a nice community here. Everyone here is really nice and really keeps it classy. And hello, ATS News. Sorry. I'm sorry you're late. I think you went on live earlier today. So I saw that and then I scheduled mine for later than yours because, you know, YouTube is a collaborative community and we don't like to step on each other. So that's why Duty Ron and Police Off the Cuff and I are always checking with each other to make sure that we're not stepping on each other because we have cross-pollination of a lot of our viewers and subs. Oh, thank you, Peter. Peter's retired law enforcement, and he's also one of my mods, and he's awesome. And so is his awesome wife, Rochella. You knocked it out of the park tonight, Mel. Thank you. Also, yes, we did a video. Oh boy. Here, listen to this. So we did a video on James Burke. And if you don't know who James Burke is, Jimmy Burke was the former Suffolk County, Long Island, I'm going to get this right this time, you guys, police chief. He was not the police commissioner. He was the police chief in 2010 when the Gilgo 4 bodies were found. He was recently arrested in a sting operation. Some of the charges were unfortunately dropped for soliciting a male prostitute, for indecent exposure because he had his parts out, and for a couple of other charges. And while I was on my live, Peter Pranzo and his wife Rochella were in their car. They went to the scene of the Veterans Memorial Park on Long Island where Jimmy Burke had been arrested, and they did live video for us. I mean, is that dedication or what? That was a really great show. Jimmy Burke is going to be in court on Monday afternoon. I will be there for that. I'm hoping he shows up in the court system. It does not show that he has an attorney, so I don't know if he's representing himself. So watch out for that on Monday, which is also 9/11, which is a very, very sad day here in New York and mostly everywhere, but especially in New York because so many of us were so personally affected on 9/11. And it's hard to believe that it was over 20 years ago because in many ways it still feels like yesterday. And in many ways, so many of my friends who were first responders are, starting to come down with physical ailments directly as a result of working on the pile and for so long and not having proper protective equipment. And it's very, very sad. But I digress again. Mercedes, I don't know if anybody knows how deep this goes and how many kids are going through this as we speak right now. Yes, please. And if you are going through this right now, please, I know it's hard, but tell someone. Tell someone you trust. Tell a teacher. Tell a friend, a neighbor, a relative. Tell someone it is not your fault. It is not your fault what's happening to you. You have to tell someone. And you will get through it. And it's not your fault. DT Kells, Ruby's sisters have toxic parenting too. They blanket train like the Duggars, have weird food rules, and even believe parents should always come before kids. Yeah, and I got a lot of heat last time too. They came for me in the comments when I played Bonnie's apology video, which had background music, was heavily edited and monetized, where Bonnie, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, I'm not defaming anybody, okay? I'm allowed to have an opinion. Bonnie was shedding some crocodile tears talking about how for the past 3 years, she and her sisters have kept quiet to protect the kids. They kept quiet to protect the kids. And they were doing everything they could behind the scenes to try and get help for those kids because they had cut off, all contact with Ruby a couple of years before, maybe. But I'd like a definition of did all that we could. We were doing all we could. Come for me in the comments. I don't care. I don't care. Really? You have platforms with millions of followers and you were doing everything you can? Maybe not, because maybe you didn't want your cash cow or your gravy train to come to a screeching halt, or maybe you were getting paid by the budget that was coming out of the Mormon church to make these videos. But did you go to the courthouse? Did you file a custody petition? What exactly did you do? If you did everything, come for me in the comments, please. I welcome it. I enjoy respectful debate, but you don't have to agree with me. But I like my sign says, I'm not a cupcake. I cannot please everybody. I'm not going to please everybody. Where are Ruby's parents? That's an interesting question. They were in Serbia on a mission. And Somebody said they're back because somebody on Reddit saw that their Instagram account was now located in the United States. When they were on their mission, it was located in Serbia or wherever they were. I think it was Serbia. Poppy, they're complacent. It's all about money. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. Thanks, Dina. Take the heat. We're here with you. We're here with fans. F the ones coming for you. You speak truth. I do. I'm not afraid of them. Trust me. I took on the Catholic Church. You think I'm worried about what's going on with the sisters? Yes. Yay. Not a cupcake. That's my daughter. She knows. I say that all the time. I'm not a cupcake. I have 5 kids. Everybody wants something different. Everyone's not always happy at the same time. I am not a cupcake. 22 tantrums. Sisters doing all they can is the same as the state of Utah giving Jodi her license back. Absolutely nauseating. Yes, it is. This is a good question, and I don't know the answer to this. Awesome, Sassy Sauce. Great question. Can the state put a restraining order on the husband to keep him away from influencing the children to stay quiet? I don't know the answer to that. Any attorneys that are practicing in Utah, please call me and get involved. Come into the chat. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you from Canada for discussing this. I used to watch their videos till I was just so sad for the kids. So I wasn't surprised to see that they finally got arrested. My heart breaks for the kids. I think a lot of her viewers were not surprised to see that she got arrested. I think they weren't surprised at all. So Judith Lyons, come for me in the comments. This is why I love you so much, Mel. Well, hey, I'm here for you guys. I'm here for it. I'll take the heat. That's okay. Mickey says, I wish Shari would speak out. Oh, she's speaking out. She's speaking out, girl. She's all over her TikTok. She is speaking out and she will be testifying. And listen, I cannot in any way, shape, or form fault Shari. Shari's 20 years old. She did all she could to get the hell out of there and to escape this abuse. I'm a little more upset with the sisters who are adults with huge platforms and the grandparents who are adults with huge platforms. So, Cheryl says Ruby's parents are still in Serbia on their mission. Okay, Reddit was wrong. Big shock there. They will not be coming home until their mission is over less than a year from now. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's true unless you know them personally and you know that they actually are in Serbia. Some of those Reddit people are very, very excellent armchair detectives. So I don't know. Maybe they're here and they're in hiding. Is that possible? Don't really know. Grace, I wish I had you as my attorney. You are such a great person. What is the possibility that Judge Walton will release Ruby and Jodi, that should say, from jail on September 21? My notes say that it's the 18th that they're coming back. So now I'm gonna have to check my dates. But I'm gonna go with slim and none. No, I don't know. Like all this stuff that's coming out with Jessi right now, I think that they can show that at least Jodi is a danger to the public. I mean, let's hope that they do not get out of jail because they are exactly where they should be. Exactly where they should be. And keep in mind too, that they are each charged with 6 felony counts of child abuse each. Each of those charges, is I think a maximum of 10 years. Is it 10 or 15? I think it's 15 years. So that's technically 90 years in jail. I mean, that's a little, I don't know if it would be consecutive, concurrent. I don't know, but we're going to have to see. Well, I'll be here for it. We'll be keeping tuned. Adam says, imagine being stupid enough to film abuse for years and hope that will help you in court. Yeah. Can you imagine? She's throwing her kids under the bus now, huh? Pierre, thank you, Pierre, for the $5 super chat. If you make merch, you need to put comfort in the comments on a t-shirt. Thank you. Thank you, Pierre. He loves me, or he or she. I'm really looking for merch ideas. So, hey, put it in the comments. If you have any ideas for merch or slogans for me, I would love to hear it. Love to hear it. So I'm going to start memberships soon. I mean, I'm still under 10,000 subscribers, which is why I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. YouTube gives you all of these analytics and there's like so many analytics, but I think it's maybe 60% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed. Imagine if you all subscribed, how much good we could do. How many things we could try and change together. Yes, Mark. Yeah, we did a show on this the other night. Ruby's brother went to Jodi for counseling and said she was awful. Yes. In fact, the brother, I think his name is, I want to say Bo, but I can't be 100% on that. But he actually is the one who started seeing her, I think, first, and then brought her into the family. Then Jodi became Chad's therapist, the oldest son. And then Jodi became the marriage counselor for Ruby and Kevin. So look at how far this enmeshment goes. And then apparently, maybe, allegedly, in my opinion, she drove a wedge in between Ruby and Kevin because she became business partners with Ruby, and neighbors reported that all of a sudden Jodi's car was in the driveway all the time and Kevin was just gone. Then they started this wacky connections thing. Go back and watch my last video that I did with Oblivious Benson, where we did a deep dive into all the posts from connections and Jodi's background and her license suspension and, you know, how she wormed her way into this family, which, by the way, is unethical, you know, to treat the son and then do the marriage counseling for the parents and then become business partners with the woman. So many boundaries have been crossed that it's just nauseating. Love your shirt, Melanie. Thank you. This one is from Zara. I don't know if they still have it available, but I do love the blouses at Zara because they're reasonably priced and you can buy them in volume and try not to repeat a shirt, you know. Gotta have some sense of fashion. Somebody came for me again on Duty Ron's channel, like, why is she always so dressed up? And why is she always made like, this is just who I am. This is what I do. Like, come on. Somebody said to me, you know, your videos are so blurry. You don't have to put filters on. I don't have any filters on. I have a ring light. I have another light and a big screen over here that has some light. That's it. There's no filters. This is who I am. I'm not a cupcake. Thanks, Jake. You will soon get to 10,000 subs with your awesome channel. Thank you. Thank you, AJ Lowe, for subscribing and liking me. More like disconnections. All right, comment of the day. Kawali K. I can't really see that because my eyes are bad, but Kawai K 77. More like disconnections. Yes, the company was called Connections. Yes, and I said this too the other night. Whiskers. Jodi chose Ruby for the views and money. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Thank you, Peter, for telling people to subscribe. I think we're gonna wrap it up because we've been here for like, oh my gosh, over 2 hours. Is that even possible? The time flies when we're having so much fun here, you guys, right? Watch for me on Monday, and I am going to go to court, and hopefully Jimmy Burke is going to show up, and we'll see what's going to happen with him. It is, I guess it's an arraignment. I'm not even sure what it's on for. That'll be Monday afternoon. I'll probably go live sometime after that. There's probably going to be a lot of stuff going on for 9/11. So prayers up to everyone that was lost in 9/11, to their families, to their children, to all the first responders who are some of my best friends who are now suffering with 9/11 related illnesses. Thank you, Jakey, for your is that euro? €5 super chat. Enjoy a well-earned treat. I will. Thank you so much. I also have linked in my channel. You can buy me a matcha latte, which is another way that people like to support. It's not really any, you know, it's like buy me a coffee. It has nothing really to do with coffee. It's just kind of a platform that was created by creators actually to support channels. They take less of a vig, I guess, than YouTube does, but it's kind of cool. So if you want, you can buy me a matcha latte. I would love that. You don't have to support me financially, but it's really nice if you do. And I'm going to start memberships soon, and we are going to keep this train running down the track, you guys. And I don't care who we run over on the way, because somebody needs to talk about this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff out there that needs to be done and fixed and changed. And shout out to the girls at Pace and Eva who sent my daughter a picture the other day that they were in their dorm room with the laptop open watching me on YouTube. And to the girls from camp who wanted my picture when I went to pick my kids up at camp, saying that I was their favorite YouTuber. Can you imagine? These girls have been watching YouTube their whole entire life, and now I'm a favorite YouTuber among the teenage girl, college girl crowd. So yay. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to all my moderators for keeping the chat classy. Let's keep fighting the good fight. Keep on keeping on. And one more thing from RB. When is the arraignment? Ruby's CA argument is bogus. Which arraignment are we talking about? Ruby and Jodi's next conference, or Jimmy Burke? Jimmy Burke is Monday, 9/11. I have in my notes 9/18 for the next appearance for Jodi and Ruby, and 9/15 for the mediation on the custody. But now I'm hearing that it may be the 21st for the Ruby and Jodi thing. So yes, Leah, get off to Zara. Tell them to give me a sponsorship and I will wear their clothes every time I come on camera. Oh, 9/13. Oh, Jennifer, are they coming back? Are they going to have the sentencing finally? All right, I'm writing that down right now. Yes, Dutyron and I covered that case together. He covered it a lot longer than I did, but when I came on YouTube, I started covering it with him. And is it for sentencing? Can you just put that in the chat? And I think they'll have audio feed for that because they did not have a camera in the courtroom. Come on, really? They're watching me at CU too? Go Buffs! Go Buffs! That was such a great game today. I wonder if she was at the game and if she ran on the field. And Deion Sanders, an amazing, amazing football today. Beat Nebraska in the Boulder home opener. Amazing, amazing. I'm going to try and get out there for a game. I don't know. It's going to be hard to get tickets, but one of my daughters wants to look at CU because we're starting those college applications right now. If anybody wants to start a support group for mothers of high school seniors, please give me a call. All righty. That's all I got for now. So everyone get to sleep. It is almost midnight here on the East Coast. I thank you so much for sticking with me. There's still 1,100 of you here. I'll see you Monday. If I don't go on with somebody else before then, but keep it classy. I love you guys. Thank you so much.